Hello, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to a new reading vlog. As you could see from the title, I will be reading Watermoon this vlog, and I will do a really in-depth reading vlog. So there will be spoilers. I will just put all my thoughts into this video. I'm very excited about that because I haven't done that before. So I'm really hoping I can really absorb the story better that way, just by actively spilling out my thoughts. This book I picked up because my friend Charlotte and we have a podcast. It's called We'll Be Reading, and you can find it on Spotify and on YouTube. I will link everything down below. We are reading this book as our book club pick, and we will devote a whole episode about this book where we will also include spoilers because we will really talk deeply about this book, really our thoughts and everything that happened in the books and what we liked and didn't like. So I thought that would be fun to also make it a video because, like I said, I will link everything down below for our podcast, but our podcast is in Dutch, and maybe if you are not Dutch speaking or if you find the language tough, then you can watch this one where I will also put out all my thoughts about this book and just take you with me reading this book. So I will start this book right now. I'm very excited. I love the cover. Look at that. I love the artwork, and I also like the naked cover. I think I've shown this before, but this is just the naked cover. It's gorgeous. And then here is a guide on how to fold a paper boat, and then you can use this to fold it, and if you fold it correctly you will have them together in the boat. And I love this artwork and these details. I just really love it. It is a magical realism book, I believe. I really have to start this one. Charlotte texted me today that she actually finished the book and I haven't started yet. So let's just dive into this book. Let me read the summary to you and then we can just start reading. It says, a woman inherits a pawn shop where you can sell your regrets and then embarks on a magical journey when a charming young physicist wanders into the shop in this dreamlike and enchanting fantasy novel. On a back street in Tokyo lies a pawn shop, but not everyone can find it. Most will see a cozy ramen restaurant, and only the chosen ones, those who are lost, will find a place to pawn their life choices and deepest regrets. Hana Ishikawa wakes on her first morning as the pawn shop's new owner to find it ransacked, the shop's most precious acquisition stolen, and her father missing. And then, into the shop stumbles a charming stranger, quite unlike its other customers, for he offers help instead of seeking it. Together they must journey through a mystical world to find Hannah's father and the stolen choice. By way of rain puddles, rides on paper cranes, the bridge between midnight and morning, and the night market in the clouds. But as they get closer to the truth, Hannah must reveal a secret of her own and risk making a choice that she will never be able to take back. That sounds so good. That is exactly the reason why we picked it up, because it sounds so intriguing and the whole concept of this book just appeals to us. Is that the right word? Appeals? Anyways, I am so excited. I'm going to start this one right now, and I think it's more fantasy than I thought. I thought it was magical realism, but by reading the summary, I have the feeling it's way more fantasy than I thought, but that's fine. I love the dedication. The dedication says, for everyone in search of new beginnings. Let's just start reading the book. I'm very excited and I will stop yapping. I will talk to you whenever I have thoughts on the book. Guys, I'm laughing, but I'm also crying. I filmed yesterday and today, like multiple times, talking to you guys about this book. And right now I'm on page 274. I've reached like the last 100 pages, and I just found out everything I filmed was in slow motion. The tears I cried when I found out. It is so bad because like the scenic videos you just saw, like those little fragments of me reading, those I could like, you know, speed up and put out of slow motion. I don't know how to say it, but I could speed those up. But like whenever my camera films in slow motion, it doesn't pick up sound. So everything I was telling that was in slow motion, it got lost. We do not have that anymore. Guys, I was so upset about that because I did multiple check-ins with my thoughts on the book, and I was so excited about this video. And actually, when I found out everything was in slow motion, I wanted to cancel this video. I wanted to just read the last 100 pages of the book, not film it, delete this whole concept, and just move on. But I am going to include this because I just started my YouTube journey and mistakes are very human, and I also really need to just learn to accept that not everything is perfect. And I really still feel like a failure that I didn't once just saw that it was in slow motion. If I had noticed it a little bit sooner. Anyways, that is why I am going to do a little info dump right now with like what's going on in the story and what I'm thinking about it, what I'm feeling about it. I really did want to divide it a little bit more with like fragments of me reading, fragments of me talking about the book, reading again, talking again, so it would be a little more spread out, with also for you guys with all the information about the books you get. But that was just not meant to be or something. So back to the book, back to just happy thoughts, I guess. I've reached the last 100 pages of Watermoon and I am absolutely loving the book. I really do. I have tapped so many beautiful quotes and beautiful moments, and I really enjoy the book. So we are going to do a recap. I am going to do it as quick, fast-paced, to the point, whatever as possible, but it's like 200 pages and yeah, okay. Anyways, the story is about Hena. Hena lives in a world where there is like magic, and it's just not the world we know. And she has a pawn shop. Actually, when the story starts, her father is the owner of that pawn shop, but it is his last day because he is going into retirement. So it is his last day, and everyone, like he and she, knows that she will take over the pawn shop. It is her fate, it is her duty, it is whatever she has to do, even though she is not really excited about that fate. So his pawn shop is disguised as a ramen restaurant in like the normal world, like the world we know. So whenever someone enters that restaurant, they just go eat something. But whenever someone is seeking something, they enter the restaurant, and they, instead of the restaurant, they enter his pawn shop. And usually the clients are very just confused because obviously they thought they were going to a restaurant and then suddenly they're just in the middle of a pawn shop. And the thing about that shop is people exchange their regrets or like their choices, just one thing that they would rather live without, they exchange that. And in return, so for example, we got an example in like the first few chapters of a woman who had supposedly an affair with a man who wasn't her husband, and she wanted basically to just delete him from her mind. So she didn't want to yearn for him anymore, she didn't want to think about him or just spend time on him. So she exchanged that whole like memory concept of her and that man with Hena's father. And in exchange, she got a tea box, and he explained that every customer gets this tea box, and it's just plain green tea, and they have to drink it that night, and then everything like surrounding that memory or choice will fade away. And it is the same tea, but for everyone it's different because everyone wants a different result. So that is a bit the concept of the pawn shop. Then we move on, and the next day we follow Heina. The chapters are like very short, and so the perspectives change a little. So one time we follow Heina and then we follow her father, but it's like very a third perspective, and we never get like inside their head, but we follow them very closely. So the next morning, Heina wakes up and it's her first day as the pawn shop owner. And she is really dreading the day because she doesn't want to be the pawn shop owner. And she comes into the store and she finds it completely ransacked. So there's glass everywhere and her father is missing. Also, I completely forgot to tell you this, but in that pawn shop there is a vault, and that vault contains a lot of birds. So the vault is just full of birds, and every bird is like a choice or like a regret that one of the customers exchanged. So they get a box of tea, and the pawn shop gets like the choice or the regret, and it takes the form of a bird. And that bird goes into the vault. The vault is full of birds, and once in a month, I think like every full moon or something like that, the shikun appears, and it's like the vault keepers, like the secret keepers. They also call them just the keepers because it's a very like scary image of a person with a mask and just talons and just big cloak, and sometimes they are just with one and sometimes they are with three, but when they speak it's like 100 people are speaking because it's like every other like generation of the shikun, and they are like very eerily described. But Heina wakes up and the pawn shop is ransacked, there's glass everywhere, and her father is missing along with one bird. One bird, so one secret is also missing. And then she finds like her mother's glasses on the floor. And the thing with her mother is her mother died when she was a baby. And I'm doing like this because her biggest crime was she took a secret from the vault. And that is like the biggest crime possible in her world. So the Shikun came and they found out that her mother took one of the secrets, and they like banished her from her world. And there's like this divide between like Heina's world, like the magical world, and the outside world, so the world we know. And her mother was banished to that, but once a person from Heina's world enters the normal world, they will like fade. So she died. They basically killed her. So the only thing left from her mother are her glasses. And when you put on those glasses, you see like some magical things you can't see with like just your eyes. So for example, the vault in the pawn shop may look empty, but once you put on the glasses, you see like birds everywhere. So she finds out that everything is completely ransacked, glass everywhere, it's broken, and just a total mess. But the only thing that's like carefully placed on the ground are her mother's glasses. And they are like, they don't have a scratch, they're not broken, there's nothing wrong with them. So she thinks her father set the whole thing up because he's the only person who knows like the emotional and just like the practical importance of the glasses. She's thinking this and also wandering around the shop on like her bare feet. So her feet are bleeding, and then a customer opens. And at first he's like very confused because he thought he was entering a restaurant, but then he sees like her feet bleeding and glass everywhere, and he rushes to help her. And it is the first time in her whole life that someone entered that shop not like seeking help but offering it. And that was such a cool perspective from her because you could really feel that she was like confused because she isn't used to being helped. So he is a scientist. His name is Kaishun. She calls him Kai, and they start like to talk to each other, and he is just very confused. He is a scientist in the other world, and he cannot fathom what is going on because everything he has ever believed is like based on facts and science, and suddenly he's like in this magical shop with a girl who says her father is missing because there is secret stolen or something like that. So you could really feel his confusion. And then she explains that she thinks her father set this whole thing up. And she doesn't know why. She doesn't know why he abandoned her, why there is a secret missing. Like, did he just take off with the secret? Did someone steal the secret and he like rushed behind to catch it? She doesn't know. So she is seeking answers. What she does know is that her father set up this whole ransacked robbery scene. She doesn't know why, but she know that he did. When she was a child, he would do like a lot of treasure hunts with her. So he would leave little clues everywhere in the house, and at the end of that little quest, she would find a box full of sweets. And that is why she thinks he is right now doing the same. So she decides to go on a quest to search for her father because she needs him, but she also needs like the missing secrets before the Shikun appear at like the next full moon. So Kaishun refuses to leave. First of all, because I think he felt like a strong instant connection with her, because you can really feel like there is a pull between them. But it's basically because he just wants to help. She is like abandoned by her father. He doesn't want her to go on this quest alone. And it's also because he is a scientist and he is just very, very curious about everything that's going on. So they go on a quest, and it's like a very cool concept. So they go to different places, and these places are so magical but also so cool. So at some point they go to like this magical tea house that is owned by Heina's grandmother, but it's a tea house. It's like the tea house of midnight or something like that. So it only opens at midnight for 1 hour, and to enter that tea house you have to fall asleep and then like take a couple of turns in your dream, and then you enter the tea house, which is such a fun concept. And she has to like fall asleep with Kaishun in one bed, so there's like a shared bed trope, and that's just because they have to be close to each other in order to arrive at the same house. So they go from like one place to another, and you get like all these glimpses of her magical world, which is so cool and insane. And then we find out her mother is actually alive, which is just so cool. Her mother is actually alive, and we don't know like why at that point. We just know she is alive. And right now I just found out her mother is alive, but they don't really know what happened to her. They're still like trying to figure it out. They did like learn that she was receiving a punishment worse than death. So it has something to do with that she didn't want to say goodbye to Heina because she was like killed when Heina was still a baby, and the Shikun could really see that she didn't want to part with her daughter. So they thought that death would be just not punishment enough, because you know, once you enter death, it's like blissful and anything like that. But they wanted her to suffer for eternity. So now they think that she is in some place where she can like long for her daughter but never be able to go to her. So they're still on a quest. Let me see. There are still things happening. So Kaishun and Heina are slowly like growing closer and closer. And at some point also, I'm sorry if this is not like chronologically in order. I'm really trying my best, but I have to recall the last 200 pages just now in one sitting. At some point they entered like a tattoo artist, and in Heina's world, every baby or small child, or I'm not really sure about like the age when they receive the tattoos, but every, let's just say, baby gets tattoos over their whole body by this tattoo artist, and every tattoo is like, it's their fate. So everything that will happen in their life, it's like maps out on their body, and they can do anything about it. It's just the way their life's supposed to go. Just like Heina is supposed to take over her father's pawn shop, even though she doesn't really want to, but it's her fate. When Kaishu and Heina grow like closer and closer together, she gets like a very doubtful, because she know he is not like the person etched onto her skin. He is not the man she will have to marry someday. And then at some point we meet like this other guy, and he is very friendly with Heina, and Heina is also very friendly with him. They are good friends, they are lifelong friends. And suddenly Kaishun finds out that they are supposed to get married. So Heina and that guy are like made for each other. They're like, their names are like etched onto each other's skin. Kaishun obviously doesn't like that. Then Heina explains that that is just like their fate, but she does not love him, and she doesn't feel the same for her like future husband as she feels for Kaishun. Those are like the big lines. I am skipping a few things. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Anyways, right now in the story, Kaishun and Heina did have a very fun night together. Let's leave it at that. And they are, I think, like really falling in love right now. And it's so beautiful how they have just like this connection and this pull to each other, and just it really feels like they are soulmates. It's just very hard because he is from the other world, she is from this world, and they will like never match. Also, one thing is they went to that tattoo artist, and Kaishun also wanted his life like tattooed on his skin. Heina did not want that. She did not want him to do that. So when she found out that Kaishun was willing to etch everything that will happen in the rest of his life onto his body, she like yanked him away, and they went to like the next phase in their quest. And why she did that was such a beautiful moment. Let me find that quote because I really like that scene. This is a scene that happened just when Heina yanked like Kaishin away from the tattoo artist. Okay, so he is like, tell me why you stopped me. And she was like, the price was too high. And he says, I was willing to pay it. And then she says this, and it would have been the last real choice you made. Did you think that the whole Rishi was going to give you your future for free? The same fee is paid by everyone whose path is mapped out on their skin. Freedom. Knowing your future would have stripped you of every choice, every chance you could have turned left instead of right. You would lose the ability to dream and hope, to wish for an outcome other than what is written. And that is such a powerful concept, I would say, because as someone with anxiety, I would sometimes love to know what will happen next, what will happen in my future. Just, will everything turn out all right? I would have loved to see somewhere on my skin like, you will mess this video up because everything is in slow motion, just for example. So the fact that she is like turning it around, like, if you know everything that will happen in the future, that means you can also not dream or hope anymore because you already know the answer. There is no room left for dreaming or hoping. And that is such a beautiful perspective on like this debate. Like, if you want to know, like, kind of the same thing with some people like wanting to know when or how they're going to die. So yeah, I really like that perspective on like this little debate thing. And Heina just found out that Kaishin did receive a tattoo from that tattoo artist. So you can only see those tattoos in the rain. At some point just now it started raining and she saw this tattoo on his arm with her name on it. And he explained that the tattoo artist did not have enough time or knowledge to tattoo Kaishin's whole life story on his body because he was already like older. He already accomplished a lot of things, already did a lot of things, so she couldn't do like a whole fate mapped out on his body. But she could start with the end. So instead of tattooing the beginning on his body, she tattooed his end, and his end was Heina. So he knows or thinks, I'm not sure. He is like certain he knows, and Heina also was, but I'm not really sure if that is what the book is hinting at. But he is sure that he will die there, and that like this everything with Heina will is like just the end of his life, and he will not survive the end of this quest. So they spent the night together, and now they are going to get like closer to her mother's place where she is being held, because it's also getting clear that her father is in search of her mother. So at some point in the quest, they would like talk to this person, and he would say like, okay, your father did visit me a month ago and he was convinced that your mother was still alive, so I helped him. And then, so there are some points that lead to believe that Heina's father still thinks Heina's mother is alive. So right now she's just on a quest to search for both of them, while also slowly falling in love with Kaishin. And they had very cute romantic moments. Like I said, I tapped a lot of quotes, I tapped a lot of moments. Maybe I will go through them once I'm finished with the book. But for now, I really have to finish this book today, and it is now 4 p.m. So let's just dive into the next pages together. I have 100 pages left. I'm really hoping to just finish it, and then we can talk when I'm done with the pages, unless I have like little updates in between. But for now, that is kind of what happens up till now. I'm so upset that I don't have like all my raw emotions and like instant reactions to this book anymore. And also maybe this is a very like vague, I did not cover everything that happened, but this is a little bit like what happened up till now. So let's just dive into the book and see what will happen next. Okay, let's just sit for it. So Hena and Kaishin found her father, and they found him at this place where her mother is also being like held imprisoned. I'm just trying to comprehend everything that happened. Okay, so I told you about like the tattoo artist who maps out like everything that will happen in your life onto babies' bodies. That sounds very weird. And also about her father's pawn shop, and that they have like people exchanging like regrets or choices for a box of tea, basically. So what we didn't know was that the people do not only exchange like a regret or a choice, they also exchange a part of their soul, and they are not really aware of that, but it is happening. And that is why like every choice or like soul part is stored inside a vault, and that choice that goes to the tattoo artist. Once like a baby in that world, in Hena's world, is born, they use the soul of a person and they use it as like the ink. So without the choice exchange, there is no ink to tattoo like the fate of a child. And when there is no ink, the child is soulless because they are not born with a soul of themselves. So they need like the tattoos to have a soul. That is like the big secret about the pawn shop, because it seems like very nice and maybe like wholesome or cute, but they are actually stealing pieces of people's soul. That is why like everyone in that world owes like a debt to Hena's father. And the babies who do not have like ink, they are soulless, they are called creatures, and they are banished like under the ground. And that is also the place where her mother was banished, because she had to spend eternity with like soulless creatures. So Hena and Kaishin finally like arrive at that place underground, and they find her father. And her father explains that her mother is also there, but she just was like gone for a few minutes, and he explains something else. So Haruto, the supposed husband of Hena, he was actually supposed to die because the choice Hena's mother stole was for him. So when he was born, he didn't have a soul, as everyone in that world. But because Hena's mother stole a choice, there wasn't ink for his like future map ink. So he would actually end up a creature. But Hena's father, so Hena was a baby and her mother was already like killed. He felt like it was his fault that that child would end up soulless. So he gave a part of his soul to the baby because he saw that the name of Haruto was inked on Hena's body, so he knew he was a part of her future. So her father did not want to, leave that child without a soul. So he gave up a piece of his soul, and that means that he and Haruto both have less years to live. So that is something that got revealed just now. And now apparently Hana also was carrying a secret. The Shikun just arrived and they are obviously like trying to catch Hana's father, Hana and Kaishun. And Hana's father is like ushering Hana and Kaishun to escape, and he will stay with her mother and just stay there because he's like dead anyways. And Hana was like, well, maybe you wouldn't be dead if you know you could give the Shaikun what they want. And her father was like, well, what they want is the choice I stole, but I set it free. I don't have it anymore. So I basically committed the same crime as your mother. I stole a choice and I have to be punished for that. And then she was like, well, what if I told you I have that choice? So apparently she has been carrying the choice her father stole or lost or anything like that. She has been carrying it all this time. So I'm going to dive back into the book because that's crazy. Like the last sentence of this chapter was, nothing here is as it seems. And I'm just so confused about what's happening right now, but it's also so very good. I don't know. Let's just see what will happen next. Like the puzzle pieces are falling into place right now. Let's recap a little bit. Kaishun was born in Japan and his mother abandoned him when he was a baby, and his whole life he has spent like just, you know, trying to get like validation and just like achieve a lot of things. On the one hand he wants to make his mother proud, on the other hand he explained that he someday wants to meet her and just be like, look at everything I accomplished without you, you know, leaving your baby was just the wrong choice. Then at the beginning of this book we get like an example of a customer who walked into that shop and exchanged her secret for the ability to like erase that memory, her choice basically. Now we got like this little flashback of the choice that was like set free. Basically, that woman who exchanged her choice was telling that she did have an affair while also, you know, being committed to someone else, and she wanted to forget all about that affair. Right now, we saw just her point of view where she was deciding between going to the man who was the father of her child, or the man who was like her boyfriend, or just like she was in a relationship with him, and it would be like a hard and scary life, but also just, you know, he would do the honorable thing and just take care of their little family. But he apparently wasn't the father of the child in her belly. So because this happened, I'm not even really sure how to explain this, but because this happened, she decided to forget about the boy who was like her love, who she got pregnant with, and to just go to her partner. That is why she went to her partner, and she never like explained to anyone that he wasn't the father. So I think right now that that boy, that maybe she is like the mother of Kaishun, and that at some point she left him because she wanted to go back to that other man. I'm not sure right now. I'm just, okay, let's just, oh my gosh, I don't know what to think right now. lot of things just happened. Kaishin and Heina escaped like that magical world, and at the point where they were like entering the normal world, they thought they were safe, and suddenly like the Shikun came back and they took her, but they just like took her. And then the next chapter was like 1 year later, and it's from Kaishin's perspective, and it described that a year has passed and Heina is still vanished. Why did I actually believe that this would be a love story with a happy ending? Oh my god. The last year he spent like almost every day going to that ramen restaurant, just I think hoping to enter the pawn shop again. I finished the book and she came back. She came back 5 years later. 5 years later, and she came back. Amazing. Amazing. I think I'm going just to take a couple of hours and maybe even like sleep a night on it and then talk to you again tomorrow, because I did just read 200 pages today. My brain is a little bit fried and I just want to let this book sink in a little and then give my final thoughts on them. So I think I will talk to you again tomorrow. So it is a couple of days later and I have my final thoughts on Watermoon. Yesterday my friend came here and we recorded our podcast episode about this book. Really, actually, when I finished this book, I still thought it would be like a 4-star, because I loved the writing style, I loved the premise of this book, and I really did enjoy reading it. But reflecting on it, I had like this talk with my friend and she didn't actually like the book. And usually I'm not really if I like the book and someone doesn't, I'm not like switching immediately to, oh, I do not like it also. I mean, sometimes I do that, but not like really consciously. But we had a really good talk about this book, and there were some things that bothered me, and there were also a lot of things that bothered her. So we just talked about it, and now I have my final thoughts about this book. So, like I said, I loved the writing style. I really did. And I tapped a lot of beautiful quotes, beautiful scenes, just a lot of beautiful like thoughts. And I really, really enjoyed that. But there were also a lot of things that didn't make any sense. So, for example, the ending kind of bothered me because you had like this 1 year later epilogue. And then there was like, okay, she didn't come back. And it was so sad. And I really was sad, as you could see in my reaction. But then suddenly there was another epilogue like 5 years later. And a lot of things had happened in those 5 years. So Kaishin did have like contact with his mother again. And they even said like, I love you. And it was just so random and rushed also. So I did not really enjoy that, because if you do like this whole time skip, I would have loved to see more about it, because the whole book, Kaishin was like salty and angry at his mother and hurt by his mother, which is completely fair because his mother left him and he never knew why. But then we just get this time skip of 5 years and suddenly they're like, I love you and I'm proud of you and that kind of stuff. And that really doesn't make sense to me. So we were discussing this and we were like, probably this author should have left it at like that 1 year epilogue. So then it would have been maybe a sad ending because they didn't end up together, but it would also make sense. And then you would also, as a reader, get like this whole, was all of this real kind of thing? And it wouldn't feel so rushed. It would have been like a little bit more open to interpretation. And that would have been way more satisfying, even though it would be an open ending. It would have been more satisfying. But to me, this kind of whole thing that rushed, yes, I was very happy when Heina came back and I was like, oh my god, she came back, yes. I mean, at that moment, I really liked it. But then after I thought about it, just kept on like bothering me. Like, what happened in those 5 years? Why did it take 5 years? Why does Kaishin and his mother are like on speaking terms again. What happened? And there were a lot of little plot holes also in the book, like some things that just didn't make sense. And overall, I really liked Kaishin more. I liked his whole like character arc. I loved his feelings and emotions and just the way he was looking at the world. Heina, for that part, was a bit flat to me because her only thing was that she didn't want to take over the pawn shop of her father. But we never really knew why, because yes, we knew a little why because of that whole secret about the pawn shop, but also, we don't really know what her other motivations are. We don't actually know anything about her. And that really also bothered me. I did like the romance part. My friend hated the romance part. I did really enjoy that one. But it was very much clear that Kaishin liked Heina way better than she liked him. Like I said, I really loved his character more. I loved his motivations more and just his growth during the book. And that is maybe also why it bothers me so much that the ending was so rushed, because this whole book we follow his character growth and also like his understanding about why his mother left him, but we never really get like the talk between them and why they reconnected and what happened in those years. And I think that would have been so interesting because we have been following Kaishin for such a long time. We know about his fears and his insecurities, and it would have been way more satisfying if we also got like more depth about that specific moment with his mother. So overall, I love the writing style. I really did like the premise. I also did not really enjoy, like, I love the world building. It was so cool, but it also felt like it was so fast paced. Like you were in one part of this world and then next up you're in like this other part, and every time I was like, okay, this kind of like corner of this world is very cool. I would love to learn more about it. We were jumping to this next part. So I think it would have been stronger if she would have limited the amount of places we were going to. So instead of like 20 places to show us in like this one book, she should have like limited to just a smaller amount, so maybe 10 or something. Or she should have like made a second book, make it a series and just dive more into this world and the characters and what happened after they found her father, because there were so many questions left unanswered for me. So I would have loved to just go more into the deep with that. But overall, I love the writing style. I love the premise of the book. I really thought it was such an interesting concept, and also just the world building was very cool. That is maybe just also why I just wanted to see more of it. So overall, I'm going to give it 3 stars because there were just too many things bothering me to be at like a 4 or 5 stars. If you are like new into fantasy, young adult or romance kind of fantasy, I would recommend this one because like I said, the writing style is just so gorgeous. So I really do recommend this book. It just wasn't like my favorite type of fantasy. So that is, I think, like my final thought. Yes, I would recommend the book, but I did expect more from it. But I really had a fun time reading it. I really enjoyed it. And I hope you enjoyed this video. It was the first time I ever did like a spoiler reading vlog. So I'm not really sure what works. I'm still like in the learning progress of like booktube and reading vlogs. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you, if you've read this book, you had a fun reading experience. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this book, if you didn't enjoy this book, or if you want to read the book. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.